All other sirs and madams, very good morning. Today I am going to present my topic, acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS. ARDS, it is a syndrome of acute respiratory failure of diverse etiology characterized by non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. It is a non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema, hypoxemia and diffuse lung parenchymal consolidation. And acute lung injury, it is just a milder form of the same syndrome with milder degree of hypoxemia. Annual incidence is 12.6 to 18.9 cases per 1 lakh. Now the relationship between acute hypoxemic respiratory failure, acute lung injury and ARDS. Actually ALI is the milder form of the AHRS and ARDS it is the milder form of the ALI, acute lung injury. So ARDS is the most severe form. It is first described in 1967 by Asbach et al. Initial nomenclature was adult respiratory distress syndrome, just to differentiate from neonatal respiratory distress syndrome. Initially there was no definition, so there is controversy regarding incidence and mortality. In the year 1988, an expanded definition was proposed, but in the year 1999, American European Consensus Conference Committee guidelines a definition. ACC criteria for definition of acute lung injury and ARDS is it is a acute onset of respiratory distress and hypoxemia characterized by PO2 by FiO2 less than 300 mm mercury in case of acute lung injury, and where more severe PO2 by FiO2 less than 200 mm mercury, then it is ARDS. On chest radiograph, bilateral pulmonary infiltrates on anteposterior chest radiograph, and absence of left atrial hypertension where PCWP less than 18 mm of mercury. Now there are several pitfalls of this definition. Actually no reference to the pathogenesis or the underlying cause of the disease, no mention of the presence or absence of multi-organ dysfunction, clinical criteria only, no laboratory test, radiological findings are non-specific, there is interpersonal variation, and PCWP may be high in case of ARDS with fluid overload, cirrhosis or heart failure. In the year 2011, Barley definition of the ARDS has come, and it removes the acute lung injury. Only ARDS, it is categorized into mild, moderate and severe. Timing acute onset within 1 week of known clinical insult or new or worsening respiratory symptoms, and hypoxemia in mild PO2 by FiO2 201 to 300 with PEEP by CPAP more than equal to 5, and moderate PO2 by FiO2 less than equal to 200 with PEEP more than equal to 5, and in severe PO2 by FiO2 less than equal to 100 with PEEP more than equal to 10. And origin of edema respiratory failure not fully explained by cardiac failure or fluid overload. They also emphasize that it is a non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. And on radiological abnormality, both mild and moderate bilateral opacities, in severe opacities involving at least 3 quadrants. And additional physiological derailments in severe, corrected minute ventilation more than 10 liters per minute, or lung compliance at rest less than 40 ml per centimeter of H2O.
So what is the difference from the previous classification, this classification? Because same thing with hypoxemia, only severe form it is PO2 FiO2 is less than 100.
Yes, sir.
Again because the ALI,
ALI,
200 to 300 and
just they remove the ALI.
There was no relation with PEEP or
PEEP
CPAP.
was not there, that is the only thing.
Yes, sir.
PEEP has been
Yeah,
added.
Okay.
But still those things which were left out earlier have been left out here also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That means the original pathology etc. has been left out. No biochemical finding has been mentioned as one of the criteria for diagnosis.
Yes, sir. There is another stratification system for ARDS, that is GOCA GOCA. G means gas exchange for organ failure, C means cause, and A means associated other diseases. Gas exchange heart scale is 0, 1 to 3. 0 means PO2 by FiO2 more than 300. 1 PO2 by FiO2 201 to 300. 2 means PO2 by FiO2 101 to 200, and 3 means severe form of ARDS, that is PO2 by FiO2 less than equal to 100. That means severe hypoxemia. And another gas exchange scale is ABCD. A means spontaneous breathing, no positive and expiratory pressure. B means assisted breathing, PEEP 0 to 5. and C means assisted breathing peak 6 to 10, and D means assisted breathing heartbeat more than equal to 10. O means organ failure. It is ABCD. A means lungs only, and BCD 1, 2, and more than 3 organ involvement. And here C is the cause. 1 means unknown, 2 means direct lung injury, that means pulmonary cause, and 3 means indirect lung injury, that means extrapulmonary causes. And A means other associated diseases. 0, 1, 2. 0 means no existing disease that will cause death within 5 years. 1 means coexisting disease that will cause death within 5 years but not within 6 months. And 2 means coexisting disease that will cause death within 6 months. Now come to the etiology. Direct associating cause or pulmonary causes. Among them are aspiration of the gastric contents, that means aspiration pneumonia, and infectious pneumonia, chest trauma with lung contusion, near drowning, toxic inhalation like smoke inhalation, inhaled crack cocaine, where we can see the crack lung. And among the extrapulmonary cause, most common is the acute pancreatitis, which is the most common cause of the acute respiratory distress syndrome in overall global setting. Another cause is blood product transfusion with transfusion related acute lung injury, TRALI, post cardiopulmonary bypass, pulmonary graft failure, severe sepsis and septic shock, toxic ingestion like aspirin, tricyclic antidepressant, trauma with multiple fracture, and fat emboli syndrome. It is also one of the most common causes. National Institute of Health and National Heart Lung Blood Institute, they have itself a ARDS website. In this website, every information related to recent guidelines, everything is there. And they classify the cause of lung injury: most common pneumonia 40%, sepsis 22%, aspiration 15%, trauma 8%, transfusion 5%, and others 10%. Now the clinical course and pathophysiology. It is mainly characterized by the 3 phases: exudative, proliferative, and fibrotic. In exudative phase, it is 0 to 7 days, characterized by Halley membrane formation and widespread alveolar edema. Proliferative phase more than 7 days. Here characterized by the interstitial inflammation, and later stage is fibrotic stage, where there is fibrosis of the alveoli. The same thing we can see in the graphical presentation. Here you can see the normal alveolus, and in here it is the injured alveolus during the acute phase. Here characteristics that this is the Halley membrane formation. This portion is the where the gaseous exchange take place. Here the Halley membrane is formed, so which prevents the gaseous exchange, which is the main cause of hypoxemia. And widespread inflammatory cells and release of inflammatory mediators in leukotrienes, TNF alpha, interleukin 1, 6, 10, all other inflammatory mediators are released. So exudative phase, first 7 days. Here the characteristics is the edematous fluid rich in protein which accumulates in the alveolar spaces and on the interstitium. So formation of Halley membrane, which causes diminution of the gas exchange. So there is interpulmonary shunting and hypoxemia. And also there is tissue injury and activation of the coagulation cascade. That means the blood vessels, tissue injury and activation of coagulation cascade. So this blood vessel is also occluded. So there will be increased dead space as microvascular occlusion, which resulting in hypercapnia due to increased dead space. And in the proliferative phase, from 7 days to 21 days, rapid resolution and initiation of the lung repair, organization of the alveolar exudates and a shift from neutrophil to lymphocyte predominant pulmonary infiltrates, and proliferation of the type 2 pneumocytes along the alveolar basement membrane, formation of new pulmonary surfactant and differentiate into type 1 pneumocytes. And fibrotic phase, from 3 to 4 weeks onwards, in some patients alveolar edema and inflammatory exudates of earlier phase converted to extensive alveolar tract and interstitial fibrosis, but this stage is not developed in all patients by rational treatment. This stage is not developed. In intimal fibroproliferation in the pulmonary microcirculation leads to progressive vascular occlusion and pulmonary hypertension. Now the pathophysiological hallmark are the hypoxemia, hypercapnia, low lung compliance and low chest wall compliance. Hypoxemia is due to alveolar edema, consolidation and collapse resulting low ventilation, vacuum mismatch or no ventilation, that means true shunt. All this leads to hypoxemia. And hypercapnia due to vascular occlusion, airway overdistension and hypovolemia, all this resulting no perfusion or high VQ ratio leads to two aspects and hinders carbon dioxide elimination. Low lung compliance because of diffuse alveolar edema, consolidation and collapse, and low chest wall compliance. Now the diagnosis. Diagnosis should target towards the etiology. Any invasive procedure must be weighted against the patient's clinical condition. Chest X-ray and CT scan helps to identify the etiology, stage of pathophysiology and also to diagnose ventilation-induced lung injury. Bronchoalveolar lavage and lung biopsy and bronchoscopy are not done because they are very much invasive and they can aggravate the situation, so they are not routinely done. Now the treatment. General principles of the treatment are recognition and treatment of the primary cause and minimizing any invasive procedures and their related complications, and also prophylaxis against venous thromboembolism, gastrointestinal bleeding and central venous catheter infection. Prompt recognition of the nosocomial infection and also provision of timely adequate nutrition. Now the management of the mechanical ventilation, which is the mainstay management of the acute respiratory distress syndrome ARDS. The traditional approach was that large tidal volume and the high PEEP, but it is discouraged nowadays because it is associated with ventilator-induced lung injury. NIH and NHLBI, they have published that 22% reduction in the mortality using lung protective strategy, regardless of the clinical etiology. Non-invasive ventilation, there is no large randomized control data supporting non-invasive ventilation, but there are some clinical studies which support non-invasive ventilation. With pressure support and positive and expiratory pressure, it may reduce need for intubation and improve outcome. It is very much useful where there is not having severe oxygen deficit or hemodynamic instability or altered mental status, and it is also a mode of treatment for immunocompromised patient with ARDS. So traditional approach of the ventilatory management, where they use high tidal volume and high PEEP. So to maintain the arterial oxygen saturation above 88 to 90% while trying to minimize lung injury due to high concentration of inspired oxygen, and to provide sufficient ventilation to keep arterial pH and PSO2 within normal limit. To achieve this goal, tidal volume should be 10 to 15 ml, which is very high, which leads to ventilator-induced lung injury. An increased level of PEEP and FiO2 should be below 70% to avoid oxygen toxicity. Now, ventilator-induced lung injury, this is very much important in scenario of ARDS. Ventilation at high volume and pressure of the normal, in case of normal lung, it can cause moderate stress or rupture of the alveoli, capillary stress failure, increased permeability. So there will be pulmonary edema even in the normal lungs. And ventilation of the diseased lung like ARDS at normal tidal volume, there will be alveoli overdistension in healthy areas because lung available for distribution of the tidal volume is very less because all the alveoli are filled with edematous exudative fluid. So there is uneven distribution of inspired gases and also cyclic opening and closing of the atelectatic alveoli. So there will be lung injury even in the absence of alveoli overdistension. So alveoli, ventilator-induced lung injury due to volume trauma, atelic trauma, biotrauma, all these causes leads to ventilator-induced lung injury. Now the current approach to mechanical ventilation. Current approach is low tidal volume and airway pressure allowing for permissive hypercapnia and hypoxemia. And there is controversy regarding mode of ventilation. Volume control airway assures the set minute ventilation, which is desirable in some patients. But in pressure control mode, the set airway pressure is reached early in inspiration, providing a higher mean airway pressure than an equivalent setting in the volume control mode. And higher mean airway pressure may promote alveolar recruitment and increase in the PO2. But volume assist control mode, until weaning, it is the preferred mode in most of the published articles. And then the mandatory versus spontaneous ventilation. Spontaneous ventilation improves gas exchange. In addition, the maintenance of the respiratory muscle activity may reduce the degree of weakness and atrophy of the respiratory muscle, but chance of early respiratory fatigue. In mandatory ventilation, heavy sedation and neuromuscular blockade are required. Delivering high level of alveolar pressure and applying prolonged inspiratory time may need mandatory ventilation. Now the tidal volume. Limit the tidal volume, adjust tidal volume in steps of 1 ml per kg predicted body weight every 1 to 2 hours until 6 ml per kg, not more than 6 ml per kg. Measure inspiratory plateau pressure after every change of PEEP or tidal volume, and it should be less than, plateau pressure should be less than 30. If plateau pressure more than 30, then decrease tidal volume to 5 or even 4 ml per kg. And if plateau pressure less than 25, and tidal volume less than 6, then we can increase the tidal volume by 1 ml per kg. Respiratory rate. With initial change in the tidal volume, adjust respiratory rate to maintain the minute ventilation. Make subsequent adjustment to respiratory rate to maintain pH 7.3 to 7.45, but do not exceed respiratory rate 35 per minute, and do not increase set rate if PaCO2 less than 25 mm of mercury. And inspiration expiration ratio acceptable range 1:1 to 1:3. And FiO2 PEEP and arterial oxygenation, maintain PaCO2, target PaCO2 55 to 80 mm of mercury and SpO2 88 to 95% using following PEEP FiO2 combination. In severe cases we can use PEEP even 18 to 24 mm of mercury. And PEEP trial means gradual increase, stepwise increase of the PEEP to see that the PEEP is recruited or not. If tidal volume increases or remains same, that means new level of PEEP has been recruited. That means this PEEP can be well tolerated by the patient. And there are other several measures for recruitment of the lungs, like inverse ratio ventilation. Here the inspiratory time is increased. Normally ISO 1:2 to 1:3, which is changed to 1:1 to 2:1, which improves ventilation of the poorly compliant alveoli through prolongation of the inspiratory time, which improves oxygenation. Another measure is sustained inflation of 30 to 60 seconds at a pressure higher than the inflating pressure. For example, 40 to 60 centimeter of H2O pressure for 30 to 60 seconds. Another is sigh maneuver. Sigh maneuver is a large breath interspread among the breath of a set tidal volume or pressure. And now the ABG management. For acidosis management, if pH less than 7.3, increase the respiratory rate only until pH more than equal 7.3 or respiratory rate 35 per minute. And if pH remains less than 7.3 with respiratory rate is equal to 35, then consider bicarbonate infusion. For alkalosis management, if pH more than 7.45 and patient not triggering ventilator, decrease set respiratory rate but not below 6 per minute. And arterial PaCO2 control, acute acidemia is avoided by increasing the respiratory rate and or by temporarily administering a buffer such as sodium bicarbonate or tromethamine. A slow rise of PaCO2 is allowed while pH compensation occurs. This approach is called permissive hypercapnia. And when to wean from ventilator? Initiate weaning by pressure support when all the 4 criteria are present. That means FiO2 less than 0.4, PEEP less than 8 cm of H2O, not receiving any neuromuscular blocking agent, inspiratory efforts are apparent, that means ventilatory rate may be decreased by 50% of baseline for 5 minutes to detect inspiratory effort. And systolic blood pressure more than 90 mm of mercury without any vasopressor support. So in a nutshell, NIH, NHLBA guidelines for ventilation, ventilated mode, volume assist control, tidal volume less than 6 ml per kg predicted body weight, plateau pressure should be less than 30 cm of H2O, inspiratory flow and I ratio, adjust flow to achieve I ratio 1:1 to 1:3, respiratory rate and pH 6 to 35 per minute, adjusted to achieve arterial pH more than 7.3 if possible, and oxygenation goal PO2 should be more than 55 and SpO2 target SpO2 more than 88%. And FiO2 PEEP combination should be like that. And winning, attempts to win by pressure support when FiO2 less than 0.4 and PEEP less than 8. And in this pressure volume curve, we can see that this is the lower inflection point and this is the higher inflection point. So our tidal volume or pressure should be like that. It should be within LIP or HIP. So our PEEP should be at the level of P low and peak pressure should be at the level of the P high. So that there will be no chance of ventilator-induced lung injury. Now there are several trials regarding other strategies of the ventilation like high frequency ventilation or high frequency oscillation.